How's it going, guys? What I'm going to do in this project is to actually remove the factory stereo in my 2002 Toyota Tacoma. The stereo has actually quit working completely. It is obviously not a fuse or anything like that. I've already checked that, so I have narrowed it down to the fact that it is a failed stereo, and I am going to be replacing it. This is my work truck, and I do like to have a little bit of music or something, or listen to a podcast or something while I'm driving to work. So since this has died, I have not been able to do that. And you know, it's with the way technology is these days, it's not very expensive to get a more upgraded stereo for not a lot of money. So that's what we're going to be doing in this project. A couple things that you are going to need for a project like this is, of course, the new stereo. You're also going to need a wire harness adapter that will fit your particular vehicle, as well as a mounting kit. Now, I will put links to each of these down in the description. You can go down there and check those out. You can go through and find one to fit your particular vehicle. Of course, I decided to go with the Pioneer. This is not a very advanced stereo. It's nothing too fancy, but it is going to serve my purposes very well. There's a lot of different ones out there on the market. The installation for this is going to be pretty much the same for a lot of different models. Again, whatever kind of vehicle you got, whatever kind of stereo you decide to go with, you will need a wire harness adapter and a dash kit along with your choice of stereo. The first thing that I like to do is actually sit down with the wiring that comes with the stereo, as well as the wiring kit, and kind of go ahead and put everything together, and just get a lot of the wiring out of the way. That way, once we get out into the truck, we basically just have to plug everything in. And the first thing that you will do in this process is you're basically just going to need to do a comparison between the wiring kit that comes with the stereo to the adapter that you get. And you can see here I've got the book for the stereo, and it tells me exactly which wire is for which speaker. Of course, it's just numbered here. We have our plug, we have left, right, and we do have these numbers here will coincide to the number of the wire that is on this harness. Then you will take that, the adapter kit, the wire harness adapter kit, will also have some corresponding information as well. So what you will do is basically go through, make your splices. You will compare these two between the harness kit that you bought, as well as the wiring kit that is in with the stereo. And you just want to match these up, power wire for power wire, ground, and so on. Right front positive, right front negative, and just go all the way through. Now, there will be some of these you will not use for your particular system, just depending on the accessories you have in your vehicle and that sort of thing. But that's what I'm going to do here, is just go ahead and make up all of my connections on the wiring harness to get that done and out of the way. One of the first things that we've got to do to get this out is to remove this lower trim piece to where we can get access to the screw in here. And we're going to pull the ashtray out, just push this down, and it pulls completely out of the vehicle. Just set it over to the side, and now we are going to remove this. And the way that you can do that is simply take something to punch in the center of this, just like so. Small screw, small tip screwdriver. First side. Next, we got one on the driver's side as well. Same process. Take a screwdriver, something small, simply push in on the center of that. Just like that. And then you can pop that out just like so. And once you do that, you can pull this piece out, just grab it pull and it should pop out. Once we get this kind of moved out of the way, we're going to still leave everything hooked up. There is a screw right here, if you can see on the tip of the screwdriver. We're going to remove that. And this is one of the few screws that holds this trim piece in place. So just back it out, set it somewhere where you're not going to lose it. We've got to remove control knobs, which you just slip them right off, just like that. They pop right out. And then the next thing is to remove this center piece here. And the best way to remove that is a trim removal tool, a plastic trim removal tool, or something like that, to where you can get in there to where you don't damage it. You can take a screwdriver or something and get in behind it to kind of pop it out. It's just held on with some clips, but you do not want to break it, so be very careful. Now that I have got that removed, I have a screw here and another one here that I've got to remove as well. Once you get those screws removed, you can kind of work your fingers in behind this trim panel and move this out of our way, and it will just simply snap loose, just like so. Just kind of work it out of the way so you get access to the bolts that hold the stereo in place. You got a couple on each side. You can unhook this, but it is part of the airbag, so I'm not going to fool with that. So I'm just going to be moving it around out of the way just to be able to get to them. Once you get those 4 screws out of the way, the stereo itself will simply slip right out of the dash, which will give you access to the 2 plugs as well as the antenna plug on that. So now all we got to do is to unhook these and the stereo will be ready to be moved out of the way. These installation kits always come with a ton of stuff that you're not going to use. You can see here basically what I have done is removed the brackets that were on the factory stereo and am now attaching them to the new replacement. And you can see here what we have so far. Just got to get a couple more screws in, and then this will actually set right back into position where the factory radio came out. So that's what I'm going to do now. I've made my connections on everything. We've got everything taped up real good. Any of your wires that you do not use, you want to make sure that you cap those off to where nothing shorts out, just like I've done here. And we've got it made. I made it up to the factory harness, so we're ready to push this back in, make our connections on the back of the stereo, and then mount it up here back into the factory location. To give you a little bit better of a visual, you can see here that we have the factory bracket attached to the stereo, as well as this tray, and you can see the standoff that is between, that makes up the difference. And this whole assembly will then go back into the factory location using the factory bolts, and then we will be ready to put the dash back together. Guys, what I'm going to do now is actually turn the ignition on just to make sure that everything lights up good. As you can see, it does. And we're just going to go through and check to make sure that all of the speakers are working the way that they should. Once we do that, we're going to be ready to put our dash back together. Everything is working good, sounding good. One thing I like to do is take the balance, shift it all the way over to one side, and then take the fade and go from front to back and do the same on the other side. That way it lets you know if your speakers are working. It also lets you know that you have everything and the wiring done correctly. Most of the wiring harness kits are color coded and they will typically match the stereo, but in the past I have had them to where they would be swapped on a pair of speakers or so it's no big deal. Now that we have tested everything, we're going to simply start putting our dash back together, and it takes just a little bit of pressure to get those clips back in place. Don't get too carried away, don't want to break nothing. but it simply wiggle them back in, make sure that they are in the correct place, and they should snap right back into position, and then we will be ready to put our screws in. Always check to make sure that everything lines up properly. You want to make sure that there's nothing that's in a bind. Everything should snap back into place like where it was prior, and you can see that we are ready to start putting the screws back in and get this finished up. You can see that, I mean, nothing is bound up. Everything is setting just the way that it should. So all we got to do now is just finish putting everything back together. There it is, guys. Everything has been put back together. Everything works just as it should. This is just a very easy process. The most aggravating part of it is a lot of these universal kits come with so much stuff and you don't use half of it. So the hardest thing is sorting through to see exactly what you need, and it's going to vary from one vehicle to the other. But we are now complete. We now have a nice little tray down in here to where we can store things. And you know, it's just glad to have a stereo back in this truck. Anyways, guys, hope you liked the video. Be sure to check out the links down in the description. I will put links to a few things that you may be interested in if you are doing something like this. It kind of helps to go to support the channel through Amazon. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching. Check out the rest of the videos on the channel. Be sure to subscribe, and we'll see you next time.